All right, welcome back to BIBSTER'S Repair Shop. As all the other Oliver guys are down in Florida enjoying the warmth for the winter get-together, I thought, well, I wanted to see Oliver's. So, came down to the, what's this, Westland? I think it's Westland Mall down in West Burlington, where the Three Rivers Tractor Club is doing their annual indoor tractor show, so we can enjoy the same temperatures you guys are all enjoying down in Florida. And Oliver's are the feature, so obviously you knew I was going to be here, but check this one out to start things off. A bona fide Misty 880 diesel. Not only is this one of only 250 tractors, the diesels, I don't know. Lousy will probably tell me in the numbers how many there actually were. But, I mean, it's got the power spin outs. A pretty rare optioned out tractor for being one of only 250. But there's about 50 tractors here. So we're going to go around. We'll show you some of the Olivers, we'll show you some of the John Deeres, some of the Internationals, all that fun stuff. I will try and see what these guys have for information. I'll put their information down in the description. So if you want to know more about what they do a tractor drive for the Lee County Fair every year and do a couple other events. Again, so we'll be back. All right, so while we're talking about different color green Olivers, now this is the correct color. Obviously, we're going to show you that. But Oliver had a little trouble figuring out what color green they actually wanted. So this is a 46 Oliver 70. You can tell it's a dark green, and within 2 years they were actually going to change this color to a more traditional to what like the 66 over there is. But yeah, they were kind of going through different color options, which makes it really fun when you're trying to restore one of these to find the right color and get the right blend, because again, Oliver kind of couldn't decide what they were going to do. I mean, obviously then eventually they would go with the even lighter green that's not as light as the first, you know what I meant. But here's another nice tractor down here in West Burlington. Looks like he does some parades with it because of the way it is with the umbrella on it. But a nice Oliver 70, again in the darker green than what you would see in just a few years after this. We'll go check out that red Oliver over there. What we have here is the Maple Leaf Edition Olivers, also known as a cockshut. So this would have been sold in Canada, new. This is a 44? Yeah, 44. Oliver 60 standard. So Oliver Corporation. These were made right there in Charles City, and then they were just dipped in the red paint instead of the green paint with the yellow rims. Cockshut went through a few different manufacturers that were making their tractors. They also had Co-op were making them for a while. And then they went back to Oliver later on. There's a whole history with that I don't know. You can see being a standard, you don't have a mechanical lift. It is a 5-speed tractor because of the way the handle is. If it's a short handle on a 60, it's a 4-speed. Would originally come with steel, or it's just an early model. And if it came with the 5-speed, would not have had steel, because no one wants to go road gear in one of these things on steel. That's how you die. But yep, this would have been sold, made here in Iowa, and then shipped up north, sold to Canada under the cockshut name. They did this with 70s as well, so sometimes you'll see red 70s. But kind of cool to see this one come back to the U.S., come back to Iowa, and get to kind of live out its retirement here in the good old U.S. of A. All right, so in the story of the lots of different colors of green, it's almost like when they became the White Corporation, they had 50 shades of gray. This is a 48 Oliver 70. Now, what makes the 48 model unique, obviously, they have now gone to this more traditional, what Oliver guys would say was Oliver green, with the red rims, which again, they would play with that all throughout the Super Series. We'll talk about that. There's a Super 66 we'll talk about that with. But this, and again, I don't have a magnet, so I can't show if this one's still dead. But in 48, there was a 1-year model option where it would have had an aluminum hood and aluminum side tins. Now, that wasn't to save weight. It wasn't for any other fancy thing other than post-war USA, steel was still extremely short. See, even though the war ended in 45, we were still in a very big, let's make stuff, let's like push military stuff using all the steel for that. So with steel being short, Oliver went with an aluminum hood and aluminum side tins on the 48 Model 70s. I have a 48 Model 70 that still has the hood that's aluminum, but the side tins are not. Those are pretty hard to find. So if you got a set of those, you know, I might know a guy. I'll take them off your hands for you. Don't worry. But another nice old Oliver 70 with mechanical lift. Nice clean on it. But again, this would have had the aluminum hood and side tins. Just another variation of the Model 70 that Oliver did. All right, here's another Sweet little Oliver 66 here at the show. Now, if you're looking from this view here, you can have some clues that this tractor might have a little bit of a funner life in retirement here. It's the way it is. And there's your one guess there. And having two of those out there is your second hint. And if you can see a cord running to the back. That should be hint number 3. It looks like this one is a pulling tractor. Some kind of antique class with your weight bracket there. 2 wheel weights. And the big telltale of why I think this one hooks to a sled is your kill switch. It's a safety thing a lot of clubs require. That pulls out if something ever breaks on the hitch, shuts the tractor down. But pretty clean little 66 with who knows what's been done to the little 4-cylinder in these. Again, the 60s, the 66s, and the Super 66s, and the 660s all had 4 cylinders. Oliver Waukesha's in them. But again, nice little tractor here. Again, I walked up to it and said, I think this one's a pulling tractor. And it looks like that's the way that it is. All right, another in the 66 series here. Now, we've been talking a lot about different Oliver paint jobs. Again, I'm definitely not the expert. There's ones with more than 4 brain cells fighting for 5th place that know that stuff. This would have been an early Super Series, or at least it's painted that way with the original green rims. So Oliver was going with the red rims, green paint, and they thought when they went to the Super Series, they changed it up and put the green rims. Well, quite a few. These things, some were changed right away, some were changed later on. But a lot of guys wanted the contrast of the red rims. So they went ahead and changed them back like my Super would have originally had green. I think it's got red rims on it now. There's not much paint left on them. But another nice little Super 66 early due to the rims. It's a 56, so that's the other sign. And 57, I believe, is when they made that changeover, which would have technically been like December of 56 when the changeover actually happened. But again, nice clean tractor down here. It's pretty nice to be at a tractor show inside. It's not stupid hot out. It's not cold. All right, so in our pre-Oliver section, we'll call it 28 Heart Power 1836. So obviously, if you know the history of Oliver, and most of y'all that are watching these videos, you probably do, but in case you don't, Oliver originally, tractor-wise, was Heart Power. And they were made in Charles City. They're actually the ones that first coined the term. Anyway, they came up with the idea that it was called call it a tractor. For like a traction engine. So this 502 cubic inch monster was the 1836 Heart Power, really popular tractor for them. Would have been made there in Charles City, and then basically once Charles Oliver and all of them decided to get together and kind of combine everything, they Oliver had the money, and that's why it went with, or had the most money that they were putting into the stakes of it, and that's why it went from Heart Power to Oliver. But during the 30s is where you'll see that transition happen. And again, it wasn't yet. It happened around the time that the 70s started. So that's why you'll see people say Heart Power 70s and Oliver 70s. Those early like 35, 36, 70s that were like, we almost call them like the unstyled or old style 70s. They look, sheet metal is different and they have a different engine than the newer ones. But this thing is really nice restoration on it. Obviously, it's got to come in on its trailer because the mall really wouldn't want these things digging into the floor. But again, it's 28, so the operator station's a little more primitive than the newer stuff, but they got the job done. I mean, it's pretty easy to check your. Got the oiler up there. We've looked at that when we were at Matt Clark's place last fall about how that worked. But another neat tractor here. Like I said, there's about 50 tractors all over the mall. So we'll go check out some of the other brands now as we wander around. All right, we got kind of a cool row here of some rarer of the IH models. I'm assuming rare. I'm an IH guy, but I'm not that much of an IH guy. So these are kind of cool. These are utility. They call them the high clears. So it's utility, so it's low slung, but it's high. So it's not quite as tall as a row crop, but not quite as low as a standard. So if you were kind of needing, honestly, actually, I don't know. Someone tell me in the comments why you would actually have done that. Y'all know I'm a tractor enthusiast, but a farmer novice. But there's a 656 high clear. There's a 656 on LP, which you didn't see many LP farm malls around here. It seems like there's a few more LPs, but it's not as common. Most of the minis were a lot of the propane ones. And then a 606 utility LP. That is a lot of tank. It's a lot of stuff to look over. And then a 606 high clearance. Again, that utility model, but the higher version of it. Rossi Oliver, man, he's got a, what is that, a 2020 or a 2010? I think it's a 2010 or 2020. That's a John Deere, no, it's a 3020 maybe. Anyway, he's got a utility high clearance John Deere, same kind of a concept. A little bit taller than what a normal utility would have been, but not quite as tall as a row crop, and still kind of utility, low slung things about it. But again, 4 more rare. This one's one of 4. You can see there because it says it. More of the rare internationals here. All right, another one of the more unique tractors here at the show is this little Alice Chalmers IB, which is kind of the industrial version of the Alice. Now this was sold to a small community in the form that it sits right now. With the sycamore on it, you can actually see the label on the side here. Drake Tractor Inc. in Milwaukee. Came out of Wisconsin originally. Designed to do some steep side hill action. That's why it's got the dual wheels and the very early, and I don't think I'd want to be testing a rollover protection system on it. It's going to save the tractor, but you better hang on as the operator because, yeah, it's going to be fun times. But the story goes with this little tractor that when the guy that ran it for a lot of years was going to retire, they asked what he wanted as a gift. He said he wanted his tractor, so that's what they gave him. No need for a gold watch. He wanted his tractor. He had it for quite a few years and then ended up selling it, and it came down to Illinois. But kind of a cool little stocky tractor with the duals like that set up. This would be really cool, you know, next to like a big D21 or something that's all dualed up. It almost looks like the toy version of it just because of the scaling of it. But it's the way it came, set up to run the sycamore on some real steep hills. Like I said, they got all sorts of tractors here and down in the mall. It's pretty cool. We got another Montgomery Ward we're gonna go check out next. It's a Montgomery Ward Model H. So powered by a Chrysler Flat 6 in it. Got the hot rod dual exhaust on. That's actually how they came, I do believe. This one might be set up to do a little extracurricular fun with, again, the weight bar and a few of the other things on it. But another tractor, not a whole lot of them sold, but very popular in the polling community. A lot of these back in the early 60s got turned into tractor pullers. I believe it was because their rear ends were beefy enough, and a lot I think has to deal with as well as it's got, like Oliver's, with the full frame and the engine block not part of the frame. You can basically put whatever you want in there, and it's a lot easier than, you know, some of your other tractors where your block was part of the framing and you can't just pull the block out and then put another motor in there without adding. So a lot of the rear ends out of these, and a lot of these turned into pulling tractors back in the day. It looks like this might be what this one is. Here's a rare 190 XT. Now, if you guys, Alice Chalmers boys, are familiar, the 190 was the first, it's kind of argued, but I think it was the first factory turbo tractor. Again, tell me in the comments how wrong I am. But that was when it was in the diesel variation. This is a gasser. They made them in gas and LP. Not as common in gas or LP, obviously. I believe they might have been rated a little bit lower in horsepower just because they didn't have the huffer on the top. But real nice clean model here. Had the console control, so that's when you're starting to get into a lot more creature comforts on it. Everything's right there. You're not having to have half your throttle and stuff up here and half it back there and half it over there and half it on the tractor next to you. It's all in one. But yeah, another pretty cool tractor here. Again, this is pretty wild. All these tractors here are sitting in the mall. Quite the operation that this club does every year. Might have to bring something down next year. Some more pretty rare models down at this show. John Deere 730 propane, one of only 220 made. Again, like I said earlier in the video, propane around here at least wasn't, and with some of the manufacturers from around here, wasn't as popular. Obviously, Minneapolis Moline, they were propane till the day they died. But everyone else was kind of experimenting around with it. And it's one of the reasons why when you see like the implementation of the propane tank on a lot of other manufacturers was not as seamless as on the manufacturers where they were using it all the time. I mean, obviously here it's just kind of, it was as if they said, where are we going to put the tank? And they just put a tank next to the tractor and said, there, we'll just bolt it there. It's fine. Who cares? You know, we looked at some of those internationals earlier, and you could hardly see over. The Olivers were terrible. But another 4010 here, diesel. And actually, we'll check this one out quick as well. Another nice clean restoration. New generation John Deere. Another propane tractor here. This one is one of 337 made. John Deere 70 propane. Again, kind of the same setup with how they did the implementation of the tank. But there was definitely some advantages to the propane. Obviously, the tractor pullers now like it because they were designed to have a little more compression because of the fact to make up for the little bit lower BTUs of propane versus gas. So now you can take stock propane parts and put them on your pulling tractor, and you'll still be technically factory, a little more oomph. But another nice clean restoration. This one's owned by Dave Miller, who is the president of the club. So I got to talk to him a little bit about kind of some of the different events they do. Like I said, I'll put some information in the description about that. But again, if you have not ever been down to the show, I'll try and get some more heads up on it next year to get a little more info, because it's pretty neat getting to see the tractors all inside the mall here. Pretty cool. All right, folks, what we're looking at here, now for your John Deere guys are going to hate how I word this. This is technically a 6-cylinder John Deere. Now, 2 of them actually run the tractor and 4 of them start the tractor, but 830 diesel. And because of the just ginormous size of these engines, and because battery technology at the time was a little tough, especially in the colder climates, John Deere's way to fix that problem was they put a 4-cylinder engine. It's right back there. The other side has access to it. So basically you can start that, because you can start that engine on hopes and dreams, and that thing will warm up the cooling for the big motor, and it also runs the actual starter. So you get that motor revved up, and it sounds like the rods are about to fly out the sides of it. Then you engage the big motor, and it turns over, and you go farming. So even though they were all about 2 cylinders, technically this was a 6-cylinder John Deere. It's just 4 were gas and 2 are diesel, but you know, it all works out. You can actually see, if you look in there, you can see the coil and the starter for that 4-cylinder engine. So I have a neat way to do it. Really good in really cold climates, because again, that gas is going to fire up, and you can let that thing sit there and warm up. It's going to warm up the antifreeze. It's actually the exhaust for that routes through the intake tube for the big motor, so it kind of helps heat that up. So when you go to actually start it, you have a little bit of hot air, which we all know hot air doesn't make more power, but hot air, it sure does. It's going to help it get started better. So this one obviously not in factory paint trim, but still looks pretty good. These 830s are almost legally classified as a battleship, just like 150 cal away. But another cool tractor here. It's a whole lineup of John Deere's down at the end. We'll bring you right back. All right, we'll finish the video out with these 2 standard 66 and a 70. I had to actually look at that. I'm four brain cells, folks. Again, standards running a little bit lower to the ground. We've kind of talked about that a little bit. They won't have any kind of hydraulics or mechanical lift or any of that. Block out plate. This is the plate that all the tractor pullers now want because it's lighter. But a 66 standard and a 70 standard. Again, you can even see there where there was some shade differences, and that's the way they were. I think there's a spreadsheet someone has made of all the different Oliver greens that they had from Hart Par till the end of the 55 series. And there was a 10-year period in the 40s where I think every 2 weeks they decided to change the color green that they were. So when Oliver's we always say we're the other green. It's because we're all the other greens. We're not just one. We're every shade there was. Well, we'll let you go. See you on the next one. Again, like and subscribe. You guys know what to do when we'll hopefully be working. Well, folks, I said I was done with the video, but then I walked outside and I saw this Hydro 1026 front wheel assist farm-all of this thing. One of 29 with factory front wheel assist. Okay, so I meant to say Three Rivers Tractor Club. I said Tri-State like 4 times in this video and meant Three Rivers. So I'm fixing it here. So it's Three Rivers. It's got, thanks. International 5 bottom behind it. Pretty cool little setup. But just sitting here at the mall and outside, looking all pretty. Actually, this was pulling in as I came in. Oop. There we are. Went out of focus there for a second, but so this is where International started doing. They went with the hydro and allowed you to not have to shift on the fly. The only issue with them was that they tended to where farmers had problems was the hydro system was on the same hydraulics as whatever you're hooking up to. So if you're hooking up to your own stuff and you knew what you had in there, you were fine. But if you hooked up to your neighbor's stuff and they had drunk hydraulic fluid in there, you can contaminate it, and then you'd start having some problems. But still pretty super handy for farmers, just to be able to push forward or pull back for reverse, especially for doing like haying and baling and that kind of stuff. Farmall 1026, I think. Don't quote me. This one might be the one with the German diesel. Again, I'm not factoid of anything, but definitely not this era. So, all right, this time I swear we're done, unless I see tractors on the way home. There's a possibility.